There's also the hindrance of economic dependence. Economic vulnerability plays a critical role in a survivor's ability to seek justice. Many individuals, especially women, rely financially on their abusers for housing, food, income, or childcare. This dependency creates a powerful barrier to escaping abuse or pursuing legal action. Additionally, the costs associated with seeking justice, such as legal fees, transportation, medical bills, or time off, can be insurmountable, particularly for those with limited means. For fear of destitution or losing custody of children, many keep trapped in violent relationships. There's also, as was mentioned before, limited access to legal aid and support services. Survivors often face significant challenges in accessing the essential services that could support their recovery and their pursuit of justice. Affordable or even free legal aid, emergency shelters, mental health counseling, and medical care are often unavailable or underfunded. In rural or remote areas, such services may not exist at all or be too far away to reach safely. Even in urban areas, survivors may encounter long waiting times, untrained staff, or discriminatory treatment, further discouraging them from seeking help. And in that regard, I really want to call one more time upon the Minister of Justice, upon the Parliament of Uganda, upon the government of Uganda to pass legal aid policy and the legal aid bill that would improve or solve the issue nationwide for Uganda, for Ugandans, and for survivors of GBV.
From the heart of Uganda, where every street hums with history and every voice echoes a story, comes a festival that lets the world know of the Pearl of Africa. Uganda Film Festival 2025 is calling. From May 26th to June 6th, cinemas across the nation will blaze with cinematic stories. Watch, feel, and reflect. Then cast your vote for the Viewer's Choice Award category. Step behind the scenes in exclusive workshops and forums. Discover something new. The Uganda Film Market, a vibrant hub for filmmakers, distributors, and investors. The journey climaxes in brilliance at the awards gala. Brought to you by the Uganda Communications Commission. For details, call 0800 222 777.
This gathering comes at a critical time when the urgent need for justice, especially for survivors of gender-based violence, calls for our immediate attention and for our collective action. I commend the government of Uganda, represented today by the Honorable Minister of Justice, Norbert, who is, by the way, also a male champion for gender equality. And I commend his whole team, the Permanent Secretary, the JLOS Secretariat, and of course I commend our very close partner, UNFPA, for creating this platform. One that allows us to reflect on the challenges survivors face and allows us to explore practical solutions to improve access to justice. This symposium offers a timely opportunity to examine how we can strengthen the pathways to justice for survivors, an issue that lies at the heart of our shared commitment to human rights, to dignity, and to accountability. Even where legal frameworks exist, survivors of sexual and gender-based violence continue to face invisible but powerful barriers that prevent them from ever reaching a courtroom. These barriers are not merely administrative or procedural. They are social, they are emotional, and deeply structural. These hindrances include stigma, and social pressure. Survivors of SGBV often grapple with intense stigma and societal scrutiny. Fear of being shamed, blamed, or ostracized by their families, communities, or religious institutions deters many from coming forward. This stigma is often fueled by victim-blaming narratives that suggest that the survivor provoked the violence, or that the survivor should have behaved differently. In tightly knit communities or conservative cultures, survivors may face overwhelming pressure to stay silent or to reconcile with their abusers, to maintain the family unit, or to uphold the family's reputation. This environment creates a powerful disincentive to seek justice, leaving many to suffer in silence. There is also a lack of trust in the justice system. The justice system is frequently viewed by survivors as untrustworthy or even hostile. Many perceive the police and the courts as biased, as ineffective or corrupt. The investigative processes and the trial processes can be deeply re-traumatizing, with survivors often subjected to harsh interrogation, to skepticism, and invasive questioning. When combined with the bureaucratic delays and extremely low conviction rates, survivors are left feeling that reporting abuse is not only futile, but potentially more damaging than remaining silent. This systemic mistrust contributes to widespread underreporting of GBV. There are also inadequate legal frameworks. In many parts of the world, the legal structures designed to address GBV are insufficient, outdated, or entirely absent. Key forms of violence, such as marital rape, coercive control, or psychological abuse, may not be recognized as crimes under the law. And even where laws exist, they often contain loopholes or discriminatory clauses, such as statutes that allow perpetrators to escape prosecution by marrying their victims. Such legal failings not only deny justice to survivors, but can also reinforce a culture of impunity for abusers. The response of law enforcement agencies to GBV is often inadequate and dismissive. Police officers may lack proper training on how to handle sensitive GBV cases, leading to inappropriate or harmful interactions. Complaints are sometimes trivialized or they are ignored altogether, with survivors being told to work it out or being blamed for the violence. I've also witnessed that, and I think the police can later maybe speak to that, and I think it has changed with time, but I think some years ago definitely reconciliation was always the first advice from the police. Is that still so? Maybe later in the discussion we can touch upon that. In some instances, survivors face secondary victimization through harassment, through intimidation, or even assault by the authorities themselves. Such responses not only deny survivors protection, but they also actively endanger them. Then there's the hindrance of cultural and religious norms. Deeply ingrained patriarchal norms and traditions can normalize or excuse GBV, making it difficult for survivors to challenge their abuse. Cultural expectations often dictate that women must endure suffering for the sake of family honor or for the sake of social harmony. In some communities, religious or customary courts prioritize reconciliation over accountability, pressuring survivors to forgive their abusers or return to violent relationships. These norms not only silence survivors, but they also legitimize the cycle of abuse. Survivors of GBV frequently suffer from intense psychological effects, including post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and fear. These emotional and mental health challenges can severely hinder their ability to make decisions, to seek help, or to navigate complex legal systems. The fear of retaliation from abusers, from their families, or from the broader community often keeps survivors from coming forward. This internal battle between seeking justice and protecting oneself emotionally and physically is a paralyzing experience for many. Survivors who belong to marginalized groups, such as the LGBTQ+ community, individuals living with disabilities, migrants, indigenous communities, or ethnic minorities, face layered and compounding forms of discrimination. Their experiences are often misunderstood or dismissed by mainstream legal and social systems. Language barriers, cultural insensitivity, or lack of inclusive services make it even more difficult for these survivors to access justice. On the positive side, I also want to acknowledge the substantial progress which has been achieved through the efforts of the government of Uganda with support by the development partners, which has translated into real results. A quadrupling of SGBV conviction rates from 20% in 2018 to 80% in 2023. This reflects the success of special court sessions designed to fast-track SGBV cases with sensitivity and rigor. Almost 500 cases have been resolved through these special sessions, and almost 300 perpetrators were convicted, helping survivors obtain timely redress and holding the perpetrators accountable. Through the UNFPA interventions, supported by Austria, integrated sexual and reproductive health rights and GBV services have reached over 1.5 million women and young people, including in remote and refugee hosting districts. The scaling up of the national GBV database to 56 UNFPA districts has strengthened the evidence base. As was said before, communities are changing, and over 250 communities have publicly declared abandonment of harmful practices. And most importantly, there have been changes in women's roles towards economic empowerment. We commend the leadership shown by cultural and religious institutions, which are increasingly challenging harmful social norms and championing positive masculinity. These achievements reflect not just the success of our joint program, but they also reflect a shift in mindset, a national recognition that gender justice is essential for national development. One of the most pressing gaps in Uganda's GBV response, however, remains the absence of a coordinated, survivor-responsive social protection framework. What do we mean by social protection in the context? For example, it includes emergency shelters and safe housing, cash grants for survivors or stipends for temporary income security and child maintenance, psychosocial support and trauma counseling, child care support for survivors during the court processes, skills development and livelihood programs to help survivors regain economic independence. These are not luxuries. They are critical enablers of justice. When survivors have access to social protection, they are far more likely to report abuse, to pursue justice, and to avoid re-victimization. Yet the reality for many women across Uganda remains very far from this. Let us look at one real-life example. For example, Madame Ruth, who lives in Acholi sub-region, faced repeated physical and financial abuse at the hands of her partner. She had no income of her own, no access to a safe house, and children to care for. With nowhere to go and no system to fall back on, she stayed. Not because she accepted the violence, but because she had no viable alternative. As a result, the abuse continued unchecked, and the psychological toll on both her and her children deepened, reinforcing a cycle of trauma that spans over generations. Her story is not unique. It reflects the situation of countless women who are forced to choose between their safety and their survival. Without protection, there is no justice, even when the law is on their side. Uganda has commendable policies in social development and GBV response. However, these remain fragmented. Survivors often face the burden of navigating uncoordinated services or paying out of pocket for shelter, counseling, legal advice, or transport to court. Establishing a national GBV responsive social protection framework is a necessity. Such a framework must be institutionalized, adequately resourced, and coordinated across sectors to ensure that survivors are not only protected, but also empowered to rebuild their lives with dignity. This is not just a social welfare issue, this is a justice issue. Austria stands ready to support these actions through technical cooperation, strategic funding, and sustained dialogue. As a long-term development partner, we are committed to working alongside the government of Uganda, civil society, and fellow development partners to build a justice system that is not only fair and fast, but truly transformative. Let me take this opportunity to sincerely thank, one more time, the government of Uganda and UNFPA for organizing this important symposium and for the leadership in promoting gender-responsive policies. Austria is proud to stand with you and the communities who continue to show extraordinary courage in confronting injustice and driving change. As we reflect on the urgency of ensuring timely, fair, and survivor-centered justice, I am reminded of the words of Desmond Tutu, who said, "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." Let us ensure that our presence here today is not one of neutrality, but of purpose, and that we leave this room more committed than ever to ensuring that justice is not delayed, not denied, or too distant for any survivor of GBV in Uganda. Thank you very much for your attention.